So I'm a pretty big fan of Rick and Morty if you couldn't tell. I mean, I have 10 videos talking about the series, some over an hour long, so it would be hard not to know. Back in July 2024, a trailer came out for a brand new Rick and Morty spinoff. It was for a Rick and Morty anime. Oh my gosh, you mean that Rick and Morty are going to become kawaii? I'm so sorry. If you want to click off the video, I totally understand. That was just uncalled for. I'm a pretty big anime fan. I mean, I've seen some anime and then 900 episodes of One Piece, so I was pretty excited for this. Most of the time, if a spin-off of a show still has the main character in it, I think it's a waste of time. Why even make a spin-off at that point if they're going to use the same characters? I think of Camp Coral as a prime example. Like, what if SpongeBob was a baby? Riveting. But for Rick and Morty, it makes so much sense. There are infinite dimensions, so we could get really cool spin-offs, still following the main cast, but the show could be in a different style. The possibilities are quite literally endless. They could do a gritty detective show following Jerry trying to find the murderer of, I don't know, Gene. It would probably be me. I hate Gene. Or a straightforward action show following Summer who just wants to impress Rick, or even a serialized anime. So having Rick and Morty starring in a spin-off anime is a great idea in my opinion. From 2020 to 2021, Adult Swim put out 5 short films of Rick and Morty in an anime style, and they were pretty fun. Nothing mind-blowing, but fun and creative. The guy who made a couple of the shorts, Takashi Sano, is the showrunner of the Rick and Morty anime. Takashi is most well known for being a storyboard artist on some pretty big shows, like Vinland Saga and Baki, so it seemed like the series was in good hands. I kind of forgot about it until it was released in August of 2024, and my god, everyone who watched it hated it. I mean, right now, it has a 3.1 on IMDb. Rick and Morty is not new to hate, but having a whole season of it being hated on was a shock. Even the most hated seasons of the show, 4 and 5, have episodes that everyone thinks are great, like the Vat of Acid episode and the season 5 finale. So having an entire season seemingly being awful scared me away from it. If it wasn't good, why would I watch it? I also heard it was confusing, and there's nothing worse than watching something that is confusing and bad. Don't get me wrong, I can like confusing media. Perfect Blue has recently become one of my favorite horror movies of all time. But watching something that is confusing and bad is just one of the worst experiences you can go through watching any media. And especially since it's 10 episodes long, I was like, yeah, I'm not watching that shit. But now that it's been over a year and everyone has forgotten about it, I wanted to go through and really find out, was the Rick and Morty anime that bad? I sure hope it isn't, otherwise this video is not going to be fun to make. I mean, the internet does have a habit of joining the bandwagon and hating things just because that's what gets views. So hopefully it's actually not that bad and people just overreacted. I guess let's just get into it. Please, please, please let it be entertaining at the very least. Episode 1 is The Girl Who Manipulates Time. Oh god, they were right. They were all right. This might be hands down the worst pilot I have ever watched. I'm getting ahead of myself. This episode starts off with the Galactic Federation about to destroy a peaceful planet, and a version of Summer hacks them. Okay, that's a somewhat interesting setup. I wonder how this will play out in the episode. And that's where the plotline ends. And we will not revisit it until the literal last scene of the show. Okay, I guess we'll talk about how stupid that is later. Well, in another plotline, we see Rick getting arrested by the Galactic Federation, but it's actually a hologram of his. With Rick being on some weird planet, which is never explained how he got there or why he's there. Summer is tracking the real Rick. The Galactic Federation is after Rick because he got a thing that's like a time bomb, but it makes time go in reverse. I don't know, it's not very well explained in this episode. Then Rick tells Summer to keep tracking him and that he needs to be guided to a wormhole. Okay, I can see they are probably going to have a thrilling action set piece here. I can't wait to see where this goes in the episode. And that's where the plotline ends. What?
That's it?
Okay, maybe the last plotline will be satisfying. Morty is in a VR game where it keeps going from one timeline to another and we are introduced to Elle. Holy shit, can it really be Elle from Death Note? Now that would be epic. Unfortunately, no, she's just Morty's love interest. Then a different Rick saves Morty from a worm. Then we see Morty make a friend called Frank. Then both Elle and Frank hand him a ball with a Morty head in it. Then Morty dies. Then Morty gets into politics. Then Morty is middle-aged and meets Frank, who took off his armor. Then Morty and Elle reconnect. Then Summer turns dropped the game releasing Morty. What the actual fuck was that? When I first started watching this episode, I thought that it couldn't be that confusing. Maybe people were just overreacting, and that it just followed a bunch of characters, so it would take a bit to get used to who is who. But god no, this shit makes no sense. Now this is from the perspective of a first viewing. I watched the show twice to make this video, and it makes a lot more sense on a second watch. But first impressions are key, and this made an awful first impression. A good pilot is supposed to intrigue me and make me want to watch the series to figure out all the unanswered questions. But I didn't want to watch anymore, I was just fucking confused. And the way I explained how things happened before is how the show is. It just jumps from scene to scene and it's just so bad. Like, what am I supposed to latch onto? None of the characters or concepts are interesting to me, mainly because they don't explain anything. And that's not the only bad thing about this episode. The dialogue is so bad. Like, I get it, it's Rick and Morty the anime, so it has to have cringe dialogue, right? No, it doesn't. There are plenty of anime with great dialogue. This is not one of them though. Like, they make me hate Jerry.
I could have sworn I called the plumber, not pest control.
Why would they be pest control, Jerry? They are fucking bugs, dumbass. And then there's the animation. I will praise something about it first. The background art is really good. It's colorful and very pleasing to look at, but it's hard to focus on it when we see these things on screen. I hate the character designs. I honestly don't know what they were going for. It's supposed to be an anime, right? I've never seen an anime that looks like this before. Why didn't they just go for a generic style? I never thought I would say that. I love seeing different art styles in shows, but this is really ugly. I can kinda see the vision for it. It's an obvious blend of the Rick and Morty art style with anime, but they should have just cut out the Rick and Morty influence and just stuck with an anime art style. Like, I'm sorry, look at the teeth. They are so ugly, I just can't. Real quick, I want to talk about the intro. It's fine. There are nice looking shots and it's very colorful, and the song is definitely a generic anime opening song. I will say that they did hard commit to the anime opening style, and it's nice to see that it worked out mostly. Nothing great, but I like it. This episode is one of the worst introductions to a show I've ever seen. It leaves me really dissatisfied. They try to tackle too much, and it gives us so many questions that it's overwhelming. Like, who is Elle? Is she real or just in the video game? What is Rick doing? Why is time skipping around in the video game? Who was the Summer from the beginning? Why are they attacking the Galactic Federation? And who gives a shit? I get the hate for this show now, but maybe the more I watch it, the more I will understand and the more I will like it. Please, please, please get better. Even on a rewatch, I still hate this episode. Rather than being confused, I was bored. And those are some of the worst things you can feel watching anything. In terms of the ranking, this is going in the #1 spot. I'm not ranking this with the actual Rick and Morty series, just because that would get confusing, just like this show. It's still better than the sperm episode though. Episode 2 is Fighting Mother. Nope, I'm still confused. This episode starts off with Rick trying to get to a wormhole, but then a bunch of Ricks fly by, and then he disappears and reappears in another dimension, with the Rick from Morty's video game, who I'll call Blackshirt Rick. That Rick created the time bomb device, and they fight going throughout dimensions every time they touch each other. They explain the reason why this happens is because they are from different dimensions, and them touching is disrupting space-time or something, even though that has never happened in the original series. They make it back, and Rick leaves. So what was the fucking point of that if Rick was just gonna leave again? Sure, it shows us that Blackshirt Rick is the one that gave Rick the device, but why do they have to do the dimension hopping gimmick? It's not interesting in the slightest. Same with how when they first started fighting and disappeared, it created a ball of energy that the president wants to harness, but everyone everywhere wants to harness it as well, so they have a war and then it disappears. What's the point? I'll tell you what the point of it was. They needed to pad out runtime. This episode is a little more than 15 minutes long when you get rid of the intro and outro, and even though it's short, you can feel the creators struggling to try and lengthen this episode. The other plot follows Space Beth attacking the Galactic Federation. Her and Tammy fight, she wins, and the rebellion starts attacking them. It's so boring. This episode is so boring. I just don't care about anyone or anything. You can also feel the lack of Morty in this episode. His plotline was the most quote-unquote intriguing plotline of the show so far, and you can feel its absence here. This episode just feels pointless. The only thing that happens that matters is that the rebellion is now fighting the Galactic Federation, and we also discover who created the device. That's all. The fight between Tammy and Space Beth is really bad. It looks like it's a test animation. They changed the animation to 3D for it, and it looks really bad. They somehow made the art style look even worse. And what makes this funny is that this is the only time they changed the 3D animation in the show. They outright say that the Rick we are following is Rick C-137, which should mean this Rick is either the Rick we follow in the original series or Rick Prime. It's neither, so why do they have to call him Rick C-137? That's not how that works. Every Rick gets a different number. Just change the numbers so it's a different Rick, like how it's supposed to be. The only thing that is getting me through this is the dub voices. Yeah, I tried to watch it in sub, but I was just confused, so I wanted to be confused and be able to turn my brain off while watching it. It's really funny because they didn't get the original voice actors to reprise their roles. So this really feels like a fan made it or something. I do find the president's voice really funny. They didn't even try to replicate Keith David's voice.
Not again, that mother.
This is a terrible episode. The only good thing in it is that Rick uses Gum Gum Gatling. You're lucky I'm a One Piece fan, Rick and Morty anime. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the bottom spot, below Girl Who Manipulates Time. Episode 3 is Alien L. This episode starts off with Morty still in the virtual realm, even though it was shown in the first episode that Summer wakes him up right when he reunites with L. But now he wakes up at the end of this episode right as Blackshirt Rick leaves him. This show is way too confusing for no reason. I can see the vision they were going for, they just had to structure it better. We follow Morty trying to find L, and he runs into Blackshirt Rick. Then we get a flashback, I think, of Blackshirt Rick's Morty and L, who is an alien in this dimension. They save a planet from the Galactic Federation, but Morty gets a bounty on his head. 2 million? That's nothing of a first bounty. Luffy's was 30 million. Pathetic. This flashback ends with Alien L saving Morty from an attempted assassination on him. Then the episode ends with Summer waking up our Morty from the video game. So this is the best episode so far. Still not good. It's actually still pretty bad, but it had some stuff I can work with. I like the concept of L as a character. Blackshirt Rick explains that from the moment she was born, she can see everything that is going to happen in the future, and that she can't do anything to stop it. A really interesting concept that is really fucked up. Having no free will and just having to go with what you know is going to happen sounds so torturous. I just wish Elle was more of an actual character. She's just kinda there most of the time, saying cute quips or saying some cryptic time phrases that make no sense.
The future is simply the past's inverse, and the future decides the past, which is why you know how this ends just as well as I do.
Like what? She's really just a MacGuffin for our Morty to find. Hopefully they give her more of a personality later on. We also get the reveal that her entire race was destroyed by the Galactic Federation. And do we find out how Elle feels about it? No. That's kind of the problem with a character who knows what's going to happen. There's no surprises in anything, so they don't really get emotional moments. Everything I said about the last 2 episodes are still present here. Like, why do they have to make it so confusing? One thing that could save this, without changing anything story-wise, is to have title cards introducing new dimensions. Like just say, I don't know, a year in the past in dimension T568. That's not the real dimension, that's just a stand-in, but you see what I'm trying to say. It would make the show a whole lot less confusing if you knew what dimension is being shown. Let's get something straight. I really don't enjoy being negative. I think there's too much negativity in the world, so I try to be more positive in my videos than negative. But my god, this series is making it impossible to be positive. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the number 1 spot above The Girl Who Manipulates Time. Episode 4 is Memories. This episode starts off with our Rick going from dimension to dimension, taking over other Rick's lives unwillingly. It's a lot like Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I love that movie, so I was a sucker for that plot. If only it got more than 3 minutes in this episode. Rick just throws away the device, and then he's back in his body, and Elle is with him. He even says that it was her who set everything up. Okay, where's this going? Space Beth, Morty, and Summer find Rick, and they head home with Elle, which we later find out that Elle is not from this dimension, until this exact point in time. So how does she know her? That's a problem for later in the series. Everyone just acts like Elle has always been there. Like what? Why is no one reacting to her presence? I get Rick and Morty not reacting much, but Beth? When Morty dated Planetina, Beth was not having it. Sure, she was old, but I feel like Beth would do the same thing with this stranger, who Morty says can sleep in his room. Speaking of Beth, her and Jerry's relationship seems to have slipped back to season 1 and 2, where they are miserable with each other and never have a nice interaction. God, it feels like they are making all the worst decisions. Also, Jerry goes missing at the end of the episode, and the family doesn't care and are just taking photos with each other. All he did in the series is make a cake for the family, they ignore him, and then he disappears. Justice for Anime Jerry. Then in the other plot, we see how Space Morty, which is Blackshirt Rick's Morty, has joined the Defiance. Blackshirt Rick reminisces about Space Morty throughout the years, since Space Morty isn't going to go on adventures with him anymore. And it's very sweet. Why is he remembering Morty fondling Mr. Goldenfold? Like, he wasn't there for that, and is that a pleasant memory? This plot could be interesting, showing us how Space Morty met Alien Elle for the first time. But no, in the next scene, him and Elle are already great buddies, and he tells Rick this. Why couldn't you have just shown us the meeting? They do show us how they met later in the show, but at that point, I didn't really care how they met. I feel like the show could be a whole lot better if they just put these two plots coinciding and put them in a linear order. It would be way less confusing. Also, I don't think the plot is that bad. Having an all-knowing future girl setting all the events that happened into motion to get something out of the family seems like it could be an interesting plot for a Rick and Morty show. Like, all they had to do is tweak the structure of the show and it wouldn't be as hated as it is. There is a very good scene at the beginning of this episode, when Rick is switching places with other Ricks, and he goes to a bar with that Rick's friends, and one of them is talking about their grandson, and how old he is, and how he's growing up so fast. And Rick says that he would have had a grandson if Beth didn't die. It's very simple, but it takes the lore of Rick and Morty, and shows us a little vignette of a Rick who has lost his Beth, but didn't try and get her and or Morty back like most other Ricks. He lives alone, but it seems like he has moved on and started a new life, has made friends, and even has his own place. This is the first good sequence of the show, and I hope they have more like this. This is the best episode yet. Still bad, but not as bad as the others. If this keeps up, maybe we'll get a fine or even good episode. I hope so. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the #1 spot, above Alien Elle. If you are enjoying the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps support the channel. I'm trying to hit 20k subs by the end of the year. Let's see if we can do it. What do you think of the Rick and Morty anime? Comment your thoughts below. Finally, if you want to check out my Letterboxd, link will be in the description. Okay, self-promotion over. Back to the video. Episode 5 is Family. Holy shit, is that a Bad Flower reference? To the one person who gets the reference, you have my respect. This episode starts off with Jerry and Cronenberg Jerry winding up in the same reality. Cronenberg Jerry now has a giant sword. So basically they are in our Rick's antiverse, which is in the same dimension, but it's flipped. But they don't actually flip the animation, and Rick makes a joke about it, and I'm just wondering, why didn't they just flip the animation? Like, it's not that hard. I can do it right here. It's supposed to be a cute little joke, but to me, it just makes it seem like the creators are lazy. Also, they don't explain the antiverse very well. Like, is there another version of the family there? Because Mr. Nimbus is there, and he can call Rick from the antiverse for some reason. And why did they have to make it so complicated? Just say he went to a different dimension. This show made me really appreciate the original Rick and Morty series. That series has complex ideas like the season 2 opener, with the screen constantly splitting apart, but that show made it easy to understand. I guess that's one good thing this show has done. We also see a Jerry getting trained by Rick to become a superhero, and he is the one who stole the sword and gave it to Rick. And then Rick put it in the Cronenberg dimension for some reason, and then Rick erased his memory because he liked just hanging out with his family. But when Cronenberg Jerry gave him the sword, it gave him his memory back. Then it turns out the aliens from the opener of episode 1 are the actual people who owned the sword first, but it somehow got into the Yakuza's hands. And then the Yakuza that Jerry stole the sword from came back to get it, and they fight, but the leader of the Yakuza that went to jail stopped this leader, and they combined forces again, and yeah, they are now the Yakuza again, yay! It's overstuffed with different characters and plots, but seems simple to understand, right? Wrong. They play it out of order, and I'm sorry about harping on this point, but if the story doesn't need to be out of order to work, why the fuck would they do it? Also, it's just a terrible idea to have this structure, when it's a show about hopping dimensions, so without title cards, we have no idea if it's the family we are following or a whole different family. I'm honestly still not sure if Super Jerry in the past is Cronenberg Jerry or R Jerry, because the memory of Super Jerry is in the Cronenberg dimension, but the sword gives R Jerry the Super Jerry memories. It's so stupid. I do like them bringing Cronenberg Jerry into this episode. I feel like he was very underutilized in the OG series, so it's cool to see more of him, even if he does hardly anything this episode. The animation somehow got worse. In the action scenes, half the time it's just a slideshow, and I can't tell if it's a stylistic choice or because of the budget. Also, the family gets their minds erased at the end of this episode, and I hate when shows do that. It's worse here because this is a heavily serialized series, but it feels like this episode could just fit right into the OG show, unlike the other ones. Also, Elle does nothing in this episode, and we learn no more about her. The plot of the show is hinged on Morty and Elle's relationship, so show us more of them together and what their dynamic is like. I'm sorry, this episode made me crash out. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 3rd spot, below Alien Elle, but above Girl Who Manipulates Time. Episode 3 is Free Will. This episode starts off showing us how Tammy joined the Galactic Federation. Okay, this can be cool. She runs away and her uncle tells the Federation that she's missing, and then the Federation kidnaps her. They trained her and then she was assigned to be Summer's classmate. That's it? If all you were gonna show is that she got kidnapped and then was sent to Summer's school, why even show it at all? Well, it's because this plot shows us that Elle was a part of the Federation. Uh-oh. But they have a scene later with her in the Federation, so these scenes just feel pointless. Then we see Morty and Elle hanging out, and I have finally gotten an opinion on Elle other than boredom. I fucking hate her. She just talks cryptically about space and time, and it's so cringy and boring. Like, her only personality trait is that she can see the future and the past, and she will constantly remind everyone of that. She could have been a really interesting character if they gave her, you know, character traits. I held on to the hope that they would give her something else to work with, but I have lost hope.
After earning the ire of Zeus, Sisyphus was punished by being forced to roll a huge boulder up a hill for all eternity.
That's how I feel watching this show. Space Beth reveals to Beth that she has seen Elle before, when she was saving Bird Person from the Galactic Federation, but she was set up and Elle catches her. Then Elle says that seeing her face made her remember what she should do, and betrays the Galactic Federation, helping Space Beth and Bird Person escape. Where's the motivation coming from? That's not a good way to write a character, just having them switch up what they're doing because she sees a face. Sure, she sees everything all at once, so this is probably just another step in her plan to do something, but goddamn, it's just really unsatisfying. Also, Space Beth tells a bartender if they stab her in the back, Rick Sanchez will get them. The writers obviously don't understand Space Beth, because she would never say this. She likes getting shit done on her own, and hates when people call her Rick Sanchez's daughter. The only time she has ever asked him for help was in Valkyric, but that was literally just to pick her up since she had no other choice. I feel like they do understand the other characters pretty well in this series, except for Space Beth and Beth. Also, the Galactic Federation is in every episode, and I realized why the OG Rick and Morty series moved on from that plotline. They don't really add much. They are a faceless organization whose goals are not very clear in this series, so I really don't give a shit when the characters fight against them. If they had a big bad guy, I feel like it would make the Federation a lot more of an opposing threat. But no, it's just a bunch of lackeys and unnamed officers. That works for an episodic comedy, not so much in a serialized series. They're a boring group. It's like if the dark side from Star Wars had no Palpatine or Vader. It would just be a bunch of stormtroopers running around shooting people. Ooh, interesting. Then Rick talks to Elle, and she apparently comes from the time device Rick has, which I thought he threw away in episode 4. I guess not. And if he uses it, she dies. She also says a whole bunch of shit that's confusing. It feels like the writers took a bunch of sci-fi time travel buzzwords and just mashed a bunch together to make this plot. And it makes no sense. Space Beth finds out that Elle is from a race of people who can see the future and the past at the same time. And the Galactic Federation wiped them out. So is she from the device or from a different planet? I think it's setting up a mystery, but with how poorly the show has been written so far, I really can't tell. And if she was from the device, did she grow up in this dimension? Because I thought she just spawned in when Rick found her. But she couldn't have just spawned in because she says Space Beth in the past. God, my brain hurts. So this episode was bad, but I do have to give it some props. It's the first episode that isn't structured terribly. It goes from the Tammy thing, to the family just hanging out, to the Space Beth flashback, to Rick and Elle talking. The structure is not confusing and flows pretty well. I don't know why the rest of the series isn't like this, but props to this episode for not being too confusing. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the number 1 spot above Memories. Episode 7 is When We Meet in Our Dreams. This episode starts off showing us a flashback of when Blackshirt Rick gave Rick the time bomb thing. And human Elle is also there. Then we get the same flashback from last episode, but from Blackshirt Rick's dimension. Elle isn't a part of the Federation, and Space Beth gets captured. Rick saves Space Beth and Bird Person, but then all the guards escape and blow up the ship. Then Blackshirt Rick teleports everyone, including all the prisoners and Space Morty, to the escaping ship. Why they went there, I have no idea. They should have just portaled like literally anywhere else. There is a nice little plot between these two Galactic Federation guards, where they are outcast and just want to quit and live together. They have to capture Space Morty first though to get enough money, and when Rick kills one of them, the other kills Space Morty. During all of this happening, Morty is just standing there, probably digging in his butt. What a dumbass. I like how Rick says don't get killed by a literal nobody, showing how little Rick cares about anyone that isn't in his circle, even though everyone has lives and hardships. It reminds me of the scene between the two criminals in Invincible, showing them trying to live their lives together, but unfortunately they have to turn to crime to stay afloat, and then Invincible beats the shit out of them. I love that sequence, and this one is not nearly as good. Hell, it's just fine, but just fine is great for this series. Space Morty is now dead, even though Blackshirt Rick can definitely just make a clone with all his memories. They try to explain this away with Dr. Wong telling Rick that that would be cruel. Why would it be cruel exactly? He is still going to be Morty. Oh, it's because the writers needed Space Morty to die. But they're adapting a show where it's basically impossible for any of the main characters to die. They send Space Morty off Spock style, and then Rick does an experiment where he turns Alien Elle into the space bomb. Don't ask, I don't fucking know. They keep calling it CP transformation, and like, I don't know what that means. They don't explain it. Like, does it mean combat points? And I swear, if one of you sick fucks comments what I know you're going to comment, I'm going to rage. Then the episode ends with Blackshirt Rick setting off the bomb and time starts going backwards. Do I know why? Fuck no. This episode is bad, but also not making me want to hit my head against the wall, so there is progress. Like the last episode, the structure is fine, and I do like the concept of taking a flashback from a previous episode and changing the outcome in a different dimension. That's a pretty cool setup. What's holding this episode back from being fine is just a bunch of small things. Like the machine that Rick builds makes no sense, Elle is still being cryptic and sounds like a Redditor who is trying to be intellectual. And I just can't get over how they try to make Morty's death emotionally impactful. That's just something you can't really do with Rick and Morty. That's why episodes like Fear Hole work so well. They take the character drama and make you feel emotional by exploring Morty's fears of abandonment. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the number 1 spot, above Free Will. Episode 8 is Feel, Don't Think. This episode starts off with the Galactic Federation coming to capture Rick, Space Beth, and Elle. But don't worry, Jerry got a supply drop. Rick also explains that he used Portal Liquid to make the VR game, so that's why Morty kept seeing so many futures and pasts and different realities. That's stupid. Why did Rick do that? He said to make it more realistic, but that's just so fucking dumb. I do like where Rick explains to Morty that the time bomb is really Elle from a different dimension, and if he uses it, she will die. Morty cries, and Rick tells him he would never do that and comforts him. It's sweet, and it does show that the creator of this show understands Rick and Morty's dynamic. The family fights, and Rick and Morty go to Blackshirt Rick to get some answers. Also, Elle and Space Beth turn themselves into the Galactic Federation, and it seems like they have a plan. Blackshirt Rick's universe has been in a time loop, which we were shown last episode, and he finally decided not to activate the device and give it to our Rick. All Alien Elle wanted was to see Morty again, so having Blackshirt Rick finally choose not to activate the device, she can be born in their dimension and see that Morty. Okay, it's all coming together. I don't completely get it, but it makes some sense. Now if they use the device in Blackshirt Rick's universe, Elle will be able to stay in Dimension C-137, but the other universe will get destroyed. Now Morty has to decide to destroy that universe to save Elle, or kill Elle and save that universe. That's actually a great conflict for Morty. It's a lot like the ending of Life is Strange, where you either get to choose to save Chloe, who is your love interest, or save the town Arcadia Bay, saving thousands of people's lives. It makes you really grapple with a tough question. How many people are you willing to sacrifice in order to save a loved one? But why that decision works so well in the game is because you have spent hours with Chloe, building your relationship with her. But you have also been meeting people in the town and building relationships with them. That's why the decision in this episode doesn't have as much weight as in Life is Strange. Morty knows no one from this dimension. He's not attached to it. Sure, he has to grapple with the fact that he's going to be killing trillions of lives, but that just makes the answer so much more obvious. No, he's not going to kill trillions of people. We already know that. We know Morty. And if he did decide to kill the trillions of people, that would just be character assassination. It's not in Morty's nature to choose one life over trillions. And I didn't care if Elle died. I don't really care for them as a couple, unlike Max and Chloe. They have hardly any scenes together. And Morty just immediately falls in love with her, which he is a teenage boy, so it makes sense, but it makes the decision feel shallow. If they just changed the plot of episode 5 and changed the plot to focus on Morty and Elle building a relationship, I feel like this decision would have way more weight to it. In the post-credit scene, it shows Rick showing back up at the Smith's house and shows us Beth crying. Then Rick reads a letter asking if anything has significance if the universe is infinite, and then it flashes to Beth crying. That's genuinely a great scene. Like, even if there are infinite possibilities, the one you are living still matters. This episode is the best yet, and I'm going to say it, this episode is fine. Holy shit, they did it. The Rick and Morty anime made a fine episode. It starts to answer some questions and makes the rest of the series make more sense, even though I still don't understand the time bomb or how Elle turned into it. And there really isn't anything too bad about this episode. The problems I have with it are problems, but I don't think they are that bad. Good on you, Rick and Morty anime. Let's hope for a strong finish to the series. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the number 1 spot, above When We Met in Our Dreams. Episode 9 is Her Innermost Wish. This episode starts off with the family fighting off the Galactic Federation, and then Super Jerry comes in to save the day since Rick gave him his memories back. Oh, so that makes episode 5 completely valid. No. They could have either just had Jerry deploying the defense system and say Rick told him how to do it, or just be like, yeah, Jerry has a superhero alter ego. Space Beth and Elle got captured and now are in a cell, but oh wait, it's actually not them. The people in the cell are actually holograms. And in a classic anime flashback, they gray out the colors and show us this. In anime, they usually use that for stuff we already have seen in the show prior, not new scenes. Also, this show has never done that before, so why start at episode 9? They destroy the ship and head home. Morty runs off not wanting to make the big decision, and then Frank and the Defiants come and tell him thank you, and show us how everyone loves Morty in this universe, and this helps him make the decision not to destroy it. So what if this universe hated Morty? Would he destroy it? Just because some people like him, he won't destroy it? I guess it does give him the idea that he isn't the Morty that Elle fell in love with, but it just feels shallow. Also, they do jack shit with Frank in this series. They set him up in the first episode, and it seems like he's going to be a key player. But no, most of the time he gets a line or two in an episode, if that. Then they go back to their dimension, and Morty tells Elle he can't destroy the other universe. But then a big bad bug comes down. Elle takes him into orbit and blows the both of them up, killing her. This scene would be fine, but firstly, Rick runs away in fear of the big bug. Like, come on, he has so much tech and stuff. The only time we see him run out of fear from something in the OG series is in the pilot, and that's because they hadn't really figured out Rick as a character yet. Also, it's a gag and not important to the plot like it is here. Another reason why I don't care about this scene is because they don't set up this commander guy throughout the series. I think they kinda did, but he is so unmemorable, I can't remember if it was him or just another guy, even after the second rewatch. So Elle taking him down has no impact on me since I don't really know him. I do have to give the designs of the Galactic Federation people some props. They are the only designs that look good in this style. Then the episode ends with Morty crying that Elle is dead. So yeah, bad episode. It's just not an interesting conclusion to the Elle plotline. And like I said before, I don't give a shit about her, so her sacrifice made me feel nothing. I don't have much else to say. This episode is going in the 5th spot, below Memories, but above Alien Elle. And finally, episode 10 is a pain in the back. Thank God it's almost over. This episode starts off showing us that Morty is still sad about Elle. God, get over it, man. Rick gave him the VR headset back and said he fixed it. Then Morty throws it in frustration and immediately puts it on. Not even a scene in between that shows his change of mind. Then we see a reality where he and Elle met in school, dated, got married, and had a kid. It's the classic Rick and Morty montage set to music. Then we are shown Morty working at a car dealership, and Frank comes up to him and says that he hasn't forgotten what he did for him. I don't know if it was shown in an earlier episode what he did for him, but he apparently did something. After the rewatch, I'm pretty sure him and Morty had a fling. It makes sense why Morty is so mad in this episode if that's so. And also, there's the beautiful eyes comment from the first episode.
You have lovely eyes.
Frank offers Morty a job and he declines, but then he loses his job, so he accepts. But then Morty starts feeling jealous that Frank is offering his family a house and even his daughter, Maria, a violin tutor. Morty runs off and works construction and isn't in his family's life anymore, until he sees Maria's violin show, which she is now a world-famous violinist. Then he apologizes and says that there is no other place he would rather be than there. Then Rick wakes him up and says, "Let's go on an adventure." That's a great Rick and Morty ending gag. Very tragic, but funny. Then the episode ends with Morty and Elle talking and saying that living life to the fullest is the best thing that you can do, even if there are infinite possibilities. This wraps up the series theme of is there any point to anything if there are infinite realities perfectly. I can't believe this.
No, this can't be.
I think this episode is good. Holy shit. It was worth it. Finally, a good episode! I'm a sucker for shit like this in the original show, like with the Vat of Acid episode, and the Roy video game, and the flashback of Fred's life in That's a Morte, with it just showing a love story and showing the character's struggles. It does feel a bit redundant to do this type of plot again, but god damn it, I don't care. I love these types of plots. I do find it funny that Morty doesn't grow at all after high school and is just this short for the rest of his life. It's a very simple story of Morty getting jealous of Frank giving his family stuff because it makes him feel like a failure. It's some good stuff, just a nice vignette, which also doubles as Morty dealing with his grief of losing Elle. The post-credits scene is stupid, with it showing us that Summer from the very first scene of the show is Black Shirt Rick Summer, and that event is where Elle and Morty first met. That first scene confused me so much on a first watch. Honestly, they should have just taken it out of the show entirely. It doesn't add much. If they wanted to have Elle and Morty meeting as the last scene, just have the scene of them meeting. No Summer shit. That Summer isn't even in the rest of the show, except at Morty's funeral. And she doesn't have the hairstyle or face markings there. Also, this episode has a callback to Goldenfold eating poop, with him lecturing Morty on not looking down on someone because of their diet. It's really funny because this show will just pull out weird references like this that shows that the creator really does like Rick and Morty. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the #1 spot, above Feel, Don't Think. And that's the Rick and Morty anime. That was a struggle to get through, especially since I watched these episodes twice for this video. And the second time around wasn't much better, even though I understood what was happening. The first half of this series is some of the worst television I've ever seen. overstuffed, awfully structured, and just not fun to watch. The second half was a bit better, still bad, but it had 2 decent episodes. So, is the Rick and Morty anime as bad as people say it is? Yeah, it is. Even if there are 2 decent episodes, the rest of the series is a slog to get through. The comedy is also painfully bad. I didn't laugh a single time. There are 2 upsides though. The episodes are usually really short, most being around 15 minutes if you take out the credits and intro. The other good thing about it is that Gene is not in this series. This might actually be the best show of all time just because of that fact. Other than a few standout moments and concepts, you should not watch this series. If you are curious, just watch the season finale. It's self-contained and pretty good. It does suck because it seemed like the creator really loved working on this series and believed that he was making something great. He has even stated that he has ideas for a second season, which I don't think is going to happen. I don't think the story is inherently bad. They just had to structure it better, give Elle an actual personality, and cut out some fat, and I think the series would be fine. I wouldn't mind a second season. Give Takashi a second chance. I feel like he could do something great with this series. I do respect how he made the show feel nothing like the OG series, while also staying true to the characters and the world of the show, for the most part. Like I said in the intro, a lot of spin-offs have a problem where they just feel like an extension onto the show, not something new, like this does. And he did take risks, which didn't work out, but better to take risks than not to. And you can tell that Takashi liked the OG Rick and Morty series with how many callbacks he crammed into the series. I really feel bad because this probably felt like it was going to be his big break. It was his first time being the showrunner of a series, and to have it be a spin-off of Rick and Morty, one of the most popular Western cartoons out there, it was a fantastic opportunity to get his name out in the world. But after all the hate for the show came out, I can't imagine him getting another chance like this. That does come with putting media out there. Assholes are going to criticize you for it. Like me. But genuinely, I wish the best for the guy. But yeah, the show is bad and I do not recommend watching it. Into the final ranking. In the 10th spot is Fighting Mother. In the 9th spot is Girl Who Manipulates Time. In the 8th spot is Family. In the 7th spot is Alien L. In the 6th spot is Her Innermost Wish. In the 5th spot is Memories. In the 4th spot is Free Will. In the 3rd spot is When We Met in Our Dreams. In the 2nd spot is Feel, Don't Think. And the best episode of the Rick and Morty anime is A Pain in the Back. Woo, that was a tough one to get through. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do. I have a couple more Rick and Morty videos planned for the future, so you'll want to stay tuned. Also, if you haven't seen my Rick and Morty retrospective series, I'd suggest checking it out if you enjoyed this video. Any recommendations for shows to cover in the future, go ahead and comment them down below. My next video will either be an Adventure Time Season 1 retrospective or a Smiling Friends Season 3 review. We'll see which one comes out first. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.